Howdy folks. Today we're going to be doing some PMCS on old private parts here. We've got, it's been a little while since you've seen any maintenance, and we've got a military vehicle show and swap meet coming up in Plymouth, California here in a couple of days. So we're going to go ahead and do an oil change on him and basically go through and check it, lube all of the, grease all of the lube points and steering box, pull the wheels off, make sure everything is good to go. So for those of you who don't know what PMCS stands for, I'll go ahead and try to put it in the video right down here. So at any rate, with that being said, let's get to it. There it is. That's better. We got to be real careful about where we put these jack stands on the back of this thing, because this is a kind of a unibody construction, and we don't want to set it down on any part of the body that's not going to be well supported. And in this shot, you can see pretty well the negative camber there, or positive camber, because of the way that this swing axle type rear suspension works. So it's like the old VW Bugs or the old Corvairs. But when you get it jacked up like this, you can really see the see how that whole thing works. All right, we're gonna go get a drain pan and get the oil changed, or get the oil draining at least. Okay, let's get the oil draining off the hood. I don't know what genius engineer thought it was a good idea to put the drain plug for the engine oil this close to the exhaust, but that is not an uncommon thing with automotive engineers, it seems like. Well, the drain plug, the magnetic little plug on the drain plug looks pretty good. There's not an awful lot of, there's no real metallic shavings or anything on it, so that's a good thing. While that's draining down, we'll go ahead and get the oil filter changed. Wrong size wrench. Okay, there we go. That sucker's on there tight, and unfortunately I can't blame anybody else for this. Alright, let's make sure we got a drip pan underneath it. That looks about right. Probably go right between the two of them. Now the oil is not horribly dirty, but it definitely needs to be changed. Let's get everything wiped off here. We'll go ahead and lube up the gasket. I like to use any kind of motor oil that has a high zinc content in it. I'll either use a 1540, like a Dello 1540, which is a diesel truck oil. It's got a higher zinc content in it than your standard motor oil. The lube order calls for either SAE 30 weight or a 1540. And so I'm running a 10W40 of this high zinc hot rod and classic motor oil in it. Tight, and then plus just a little bit more. And there we go. So now we got to get our drain plug put back in and we can start refilling. Okay, we're going to get our drain plug put back in now. She's dripped down enough. We've got some thread sealant on it. Let's see if we can get her started and not drop it into the pan. This is a square drive socket. It's for doing stuff just like this. Alright, that's tight enough. Wipe all this stuff down. You got to get back down underneath here to grease all this stuff anyway. But it's much better to do it without oil dripping on your head. Okay, the lube order does not give a specific quantity of oil that goes in there. It just says fill it till it's full. So that's what we'll do. We'll fill her till she's full on the dipstick. And we're going to get a funnel for this because the way the day's been going so far, I'm going to end up draining it all over the side of the Jeep, and I don't want to do that. Actually, we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to show you guys some old school stuff here. Now, normally, one of these things right here, you would fill this up from a bulk oil container. This one is 1 gallon, so it's going to take at least 4 quarts. I know that. But it looks like that's about 3.5 quarts. So yeah, when you would go to the service station, or if you were working in a big shop, like a big maintenance shop, you would go to the bulk tank, fill it up with the proper amount of oil, and then you've got funnel, or the spout, and a little valve on it. And you just kick the valve open, you shut the valve off when you open up the spout there, or when you drop the spout down, and she'll just sit there and drain until it's empty, and then you can come back and you know, if you still need some more, you go back to the bulk tank and get as much as you need. And then when you were done, if you had more in the container here, you just take it back to the bulk tank and dump it in the back into the bulk tank. As you know, you always kept these things clean. This way you can kind of sit here, let it drain all the way down. Let's get a rag and let's see where we're at. Because remember, we haven't filled the oil filter yet, because you can't really fill it and dump it upside down. So yeah, it looks like it probably could use another quart and a half. So we'll go ahead and shut the valve off here, take the spout out, and then go back to our bulk tank here. We'll only fill this up about halfway. I actually do have one of the bulk tanks around here, but I just haven't gone ahead and got it filled with oil. Because they'll take about 30 gallons of oil, and that's kind of spendy. I do have two M1009, which is a Cuckbee Blazer, and then an M1010 ambulance, which also has a 6.2 diesel in it, and they all run 1540. I run 1540 in my van, so So it probably wouldn't be a bad idea for me to do that, to get a bulk barrel of oil. And there we go, right to the top. Nice spiffy clean oil. And then we've got a little bit left in there, so we'll just go dump that back into the bucket. All right. It's still pretty filthy down in here because of the dust from that Hawthorne race, so we still have little traces of oil and things like that. I know I'm going to a military vehicle show, but it's not like a car show. At least for me, it's not like a car show. This is a field vehicle, and that's how it gets treated. We're good to go on coolant. So now the next thing we have to do, actually before we get down and start doing the work underneath, is we got to change the oil in the air cleaner. So this is an oil bath air cleaner, so we're going to go ahead and pull the oil trough out of it and get everything cleaned up. So it's a fairly easy process. Pull your air cleaner hose, or your hose that goes from the air cleaner to the carburetor off. And then there's a thumb screw over here on the far side. You loosen that up, and that'll loosen up the clamping band on it. Pull the top off. And you pull the element out. And you'll see there's oil in there. And you can see all the dust and dirt on the outside here. Well, it comes down as it comes into the in through this kind of pre-filter, and you can see, you know, it leaks by the band there a little bit, and it comes down, but it goes down into the oil tank at the bottom. So we're going to take this over and put this in the actually this is pretty clean here, but we're going to take this over to the parts washer tank and start running solvent through it. We're going to show you down in here. You've got oil level mark, and you've got this little trough, this little tray that comes out, and that's where your oil goes. And it's just just any old oil, nothing fancy. Doesn't have to have any special lubricating properties. But we'll go dump that and then get the tray washed out. We're wondering about the effectiveness of this. That is all the crap, the contaminants that this filter has trapped. So we'll get the rest of the oil drained out of it and take it over to the parts washer tank, clean it up real good, refill it with oil, and drop it back in the housing. Waiting for the oil to drain out of that little cup, we're going to go ahead and spray a rag down with some carburetor cleaner. Go inside here and clean up the inside of this this housing. Clean all the dirt and everything else that's collected to the sides. And there it is, nice and clean, ready to go back together. We'll go ahead and wipe this down real good too. we go. As soon as the oil drains out of the cup, we'll refill it and put her back together. Okay, now while we're waiting for the oil to drain down on everything, let's go ahead and start lubing those ball joints and the tie rod ends. Okay, we're going to start out by cleaning off the end of the Zerk fitting. We've got a Zerk fitting here on the upper ball joint. We've got a Zerk grease fitting on the lower ball joint. We've got grease fittings on this tie rod end and this tie rod end. There isn't one on the center link, which is kind of surprising, but and then we have grease fittings on the prop shafts, inner and outer, and then just give them and of course grease gun's out of grease. Okay, now we've got some grease in the grease gun. There we go. Get all those fittings done. We'll wipe some of the runaway grease off. And some of the dirty stuff that the clean fresh grease has pushed out. There we go. Ball joints are greased, tie rod ends are greased on this side. Now we just have to get the inner U-joints and the slip yoke greased. Okay, now here is the slip yoke on this left front drive line. Now we're not gonna, you don't want to fill the whole cavity full because this thing slides in and out. So just give it, you know, a few little hits of grease, and then you got to rotate the drive shaft or the prop shaft so that you can get to it's open enough to get your grease gun in there. Snap it on in. And there it is. The whole left front side is greased. Okay, we're going to show you getting the front drive shaft here. Just a little bitty U-joint on this thing, and these are kind of a pain in the butt to try to get a wide enough open spot to get the grease gun into, and we're going to have to pull that bolt out. Now we can get this. And then it goes right back in. That's tight. Okay, now during the inspection of all of this, and this was somewhat problematic the last time I did work on it, but it's in far worse shape than it was before. So I have another yoke. What happens with these is it, because these are kind of a slip yoke because the drive line is fixed, they end up wearing out. And so what we're going to end up doing is draining the oil from the transmission, because on these, the transmission and the transfer case is all one unit. This is for draining the transmission portion of it. There's another drain plug down on the bottom for doing the transfer case portion of it. So we're just going to drain the transfer case, and because the gear oil for that, I don't remember what the lube order says, but the gear oil is still plenty good. So we're going to go ahead and pull that out, and we'll get the transmission draining first, though. Okay, transmission or transfer case drain plug is right there. And that takes it 1 1/8 socket. You see that gear oil is still really clean. There's a bit of debris in there, but this transmission is not in the greatest of shape. I have another one ready to go in when I get a chance, but with these you don't pull the transmission while the engine's still in the Jeep. You pull the whole power pack out in one assembly, and then that's what you do for changing a clutch or changing the transmission or anything else like that. But everything comes out. You pull the grill off and then disconnect everything, and then snake the whole power pack comes out. The engine, transmission, and the radiator all in one shot. We'll take a look. This back one is not in great shape either, but I think it'll live for a little while longer. It'll definitely live. We're not going to be doing a whole lot of high-speed running or anything else like that down at the military vehicle meet, so we'll let this drain down and get that front drive shaft out. Okay, this is the slip yoke that I pulled out. It's got a little bit of wear there, but this is a slip yoke that I had set to put in it. This one has an adapter sleeve on it. At some point in the life of the M151, the seals that they used for the transfer case became unavailable, and they're strange because they're very non-standard. You can find seals with this diameter bore, this diameter inside, diameter to fit on this, but it won't fit in the transfer case. You can find them with the correct size to fit in the transfer case, but it won't fit on this. And so what they did is the military went ahead and issued a kit to go ahead and install these speedy sleeves on the transmission output shaft yokes and or mounting flanges, and for the parking brake drum. So at any rate, this one has the speedy sleeve installed. Well, the seal that's on the transmission right now is not leaking. It is in decent shape. So what I'm going to do, instead of going ahead and trying to replace the seal, I'm going to heat this up, try to get this sleeve off of here, see if it will come off, and then, because this has got some wear, and you can feel it right in there, wear points on it. So I just as soon go ahead and pull it off. And if the seal surfaces on the inside here are in bad shape, then we'll just go ahead and replace the seal and put a new sleeve on it. So at any rate, that's where we're at right now. We'll see if we can get this done. Oh, that's not going to do it. We're going to have to get on it with a grinder and loosen it up. We'll take it over to the belt sander. Okay, well, while we're waiting for things to cool down and drain down and everything else, we'll go ahead and get these rear drive lines greased. So we don't have any other grease zerks on the bushings. We don't on any of the suspension bushings or anything else like that. They're all just rubber bushings. But what we do have is a little bit of oil on the rear shock, which does not overly surprise me, but I'm hoping that that does not mean that we've got the beginnings of a blown shock. So we'll go ahead and reset the camera so you can see what I'm doing on the inside drive lines and on the inside prop shafts there, and get that done. Okay, as you can see, we've got some oil leaks on the rear end, and so I know that about this, and I have another differential and seals to go ahead and rebuild to go ahead and replace this differential, but that is, it's not leaking enough for it to be a problem for well, for the foreseeable future. This thing has actually been leaking for just about as long as I've owned it. So I just keep checking the fluid level, and we will actually do that right now. We're not going to change any of the differential fluids. Yeah, we still got plenty of oil in there. Right now, let's go ahead and get this U-joint greased. and get the slip yoke greased. That's all there is to it. Well, when I went to pull this bolt loose for the to grease this U-joint here, you can tell that this one is just about wore out too. So as long as we got the transfer case drained, we might as well go ahead and get this done. This one's nice and smooth on the seal surface. Too bad that the inside of it, the splines are all wore out. Okay, as you can see, we've got the seal retainer plate off of the back output shaft. We're going to push the bushing out because it just basically, that seal was leaking. It needs to be replaced anyway. So we're going to go ahead and put it on the old press here. Which is a much easier way of doing this than beating it out with a hammer. Unfortunately, the front one is going to be far more difficult. All right. The hard part about doing this is making sure that it's centered up and flat before you start pressing. Otherwise, you'll get that sucker in there cockeyed and destroy the seal. And there we go. New seal installed. And we will go ahead and get this reinstalled on the back side of the transmission, and at least get that rear yoke and the rear drive line put back in. Install the bolts and torque to spec. Click. There we go. Torqued to spec. Okay, this is the old one that came out. Let's go find the one that's going to go in there. And wipe a little grease on there so she's nice and well lubricated so the seal don't get all screwed up. And then, come on. There we go. There we go. We'll go ahead and get the driveline put back on. Well, we have made an executive decision. We're going to try to pull this thing out, this seal out. And at this point in time, we're kind of committed. Let's see if I can do this without breaking my thumb. Now, after many tool modifications and an awful lot of beating and pounding with a hammer, yeah, I think it's just about out. There it is. That's all that's left of it once I got it pulled out of there. Not fun. I think I destroyed an oil slinger on the way out, but I've got some spares of those. Whew. So we did not lose a thrust washer or oil slinger. It was actually part of the old seal, which is constructed much differently than this. We just want to make sure we get it started right. Which we did not. Damn it. Yep, and that seal is freaking destroyed. Well, I guess we get to do this twice. Come on. Yep, that was my finger. Yep. Screwed up another one. Well, it looks like I got to go out to the stash and try to find another one. Okay, one more seal. Let's see if we can manage to do this without screwing it up this time. We are going to try something a little bit unorthodox. We're going to put the seal on the slip yoke, get that lined up on the spline shaft, and I think we can get a good start on it. Yeah, there we go. And that should drive it in pretty straight. Oh, perfect. Beautiful. I should have thought about that before I screwed up the last two seals. And there we go. And we'll just put a little bit of grease on this and get her put back together. Okay, now we've got the transmission all filled. Took a little bit longer than I thought. At any rate, we've got the cup for the air cleaner all cleaned out. We're going to set that back in there. And now we are going to go find some crappy old motor oil. And I see some up on the shelf right there. And I have no idea what this stuff is. It was with the, I'm assuming it's probably 1540 because that's what a lot of the other stuff that was in these containers were. But Barry had a tendency to go ahead and put stuff in containers and not mark them real well as to what they are. We're going to let that, I poured it into the center, and so we're going to let that kind of settle out and make sure it's not too full, and then we can reassemble this thing. As you can see that there's marks on the side of the cup that say what the oil level should be, and looks like it's evening out and it's just about right. So now we're going to take the filter element here. This has been cleaned with solvent, so it's all nice and clean in there. That gets dropped down in there. Make sure it goes down all the way in, and then this gets put down on top of the whole shebang. And we're going to drop a rag down on the ground. This gets all hooked back up. Let's bring this around where I can see it a little bit better. There we go. That's nice and tight. Now we just got to find my screwdriver, which is down on the ground. Tighten that down. Tighten that down. Now we're going to go ahead and fire it up, make sure we got oil pressure, and then check the oil again. And there we got good oil pressure. Run it for a couple minutes and then shut it off and then check the oil again. There, that's had enough time to drain back down, I think. And she's only a little bit low on the stick. So I'm going to call that good. That is between the marks. It's not worth breaking out the jug of oil to fill it up just that extra little bit. So I'm going to call the oil change a success and done, and we'll go on to the next. Well, it's starting to get dark. We're going to shut down for the evening. I don't have any outside lights here at the shop, so this is about as dark as it can get while I can still film. So we'll finish up the prep work tomorrow, and stick around.